So the next part to this is actually start interacting with our core Arc PHP, and the first thing we're going to do is go to the file where it all starts, and that's the core_boot file that's inside the controller. So if we go into your folders here, you'll see how you got the MVC, and then you have the controllers folder, and then the boot file. The boot file is where everything starts. So let's go there, and in here you're going to see that we have the media /CSS, and then the media /JS. And this right now is just here just to basically show you how it's coming in. You can change this, and I'm sure you will. Some might need where it looks in the database for the URL and parses it so that it's an object, and then the method call. Whatever it is that you actually do, this is where it starts. So for this example, one of the core functions is where, as I talked on the other ones, is in the views folder, whatever you set up in the config folder to load from here, this is where it happens. So right here it's showing the page URL to get the page URL, and it's supposed to be in the format of a URL, and it will check, and we'll go into how to use this in a bit, but it will check to make sure that's the correct format and only give you back the correct characters. If it's not, then it'll come in blank or whatever. So here it's showing that, okay, if you go to media /CSS, that it's going to show you the media include. It's going to combine all the CSS files, and it's going to send the constant that you set up in the config.php file. And here you'll see how I already have the headers. If you do want to use them, I have them commented out. The CSS page isn't going to load correctly if you don't have that, but a lot of people use their own, so I didn't want to throw that in there. Then they add their module, and then it just crash. So this way you can use it. All you got to do is uncomment it out, and it will work fine. Alright, so let's give this a try here. So here, this is where it said all is running that you saw on this page, and that's where it's coming from. So next, let's give it this call here. So it's saying that if it's /media /CSS, that it's going to call whatever is inside this case. So let's put a little test in here, and we're going to, if this is called the media /CSS, then you're going to echo CSS file and then exit, so that way it doesn't load what it's really supposed to. So for this example, let's save that and go to the site, and let's type in up on the top media CSS, and you see how now it's calling out to saying that it's CSS. Now this is of course you don't have to use any of this. This is just there, it's ready to go. It's really nice just to be able to know that you can just dump your files, all these different files in together, and you don't have to actually merge them. So that way it's really easy to modify, say, oh, I don't want this plugin anymore for JS, whatever it is. It works out really nice. So that's that part. Now the next part is, let's see what the instructions have us doing. Alright, so it's how to call a class. So classes are called in this type of manner here. If you go through and you type arc CLS and then put the class name that you want to load, which, this is what you would actually install for your controller or for a plugin. This is how you would call it. So you do CLS and then quotes, just put the class name. And what it will do is actually start the instance and not replicate it again for whatever reason. And this is callable inside classes, other objects. It's almost like a global handler for your classes. This way you don't have just instances created for this one feature and then you're loading it again, because it does get kind of busy when you do that. Now that you still might need that, but for the ones you don't, this is definitely just a quick way of doing it. And then the next thing is, so once you actually have called it, then you can go in and assign it, assign the method calls or whatever it is from there. Now, one thing to note, you can't do a construct on this in this fashion. There were so many different ways, and so it was such a controversial subject that I didn't want to add it in here. If you have any ideas on the best way to actually make that happen, or you know someone else that's done it really well, I'm open to suggestions. So let's move down. Now, say that you wanted to have it a different name. So instead of it being whatever the class name is, maybe because you want to have different instances for different parts, and the class is just what handles it all. This is where you just put a comma and do the new instance, and then you'll be able to call that class like this. So this is always just what you want loaded, and if you don't supply the second parameter, then it'll be that, or if you do supply the second parameter, then it'll actually be callable from that. And then, as this example here is saying, you don't need to assign this to an actual variable. The variable, or the instance, this is the actual instance. So it's really just that you're copying it. So this would be running and this would be running at the same time, or not really running, but using up resources. All right. So if that doesn't make any sense, or you want to see some examples on that, just write me, and I'll make sure to add that in there. All right. So the next part is the arc.php. Let's see here. Okay, is the way that we actually deal with calling outside variables. Now this is what the script is called, the enforcer. This takes everything that is you're used to, which is the post, the get, the request, the server, cookie, sessions. This is where it grabs it, and then it moves it to a internal variable, and then you go and call it a different way than you're used to. And in the beginning, it's kind of frustrating, it gets a little confusing, but at the end of it, it really starts becoming a real nice way, and almost makes me wish that there was a way, that PHP just would add something in like this. So if they do, then we'll just incorporate that. But for right now, this is the way that it's done. So say that you wanted to get a post, or let's start here. Say that you wanted to grab a get field that's coming into you, and you would type in the evar, which it means environmental variables. That might change, I'm not sure. I tried thinking of a clever name that's catchy. This is what I ended up with, which is pretty much fail. All right. So the next thing is, what kind of variable is it? So in this case, it's get, and then whatever the variable name is. Now the variable name is where you would actually go and whatever it is that's coming in. So in our case, just as an example here, in the htaccess file, it forwards everything. Nope, that's the wrong one. It forwards everything to a page URL equals query string. Now this query string is being called, and this is for the switch at the moment, is being called right here, and you see how it's done. The evar, the get, and then what field it is, which is page URL, and it is a URL. So it's going to make sure that whatever is responded back to you is an actual approved URL parameters. The special characters and stuff like that don't exist, and that variable will just keep getting better. If you have any improvements or know of any case studies that you need to modify it for, just let me know, and we'll just throw that in there right away, no hesitation. So all right, so that's that part. Now here's the different options you have. Sorry, it's all colored funky. I'll probably just leave it like that. Now, here's the options. You have an integer. This will strip everything out. It doesn't actually check. It's not a checker. I didn't want to have something that kept check. This formats. So if you say it's an integer, it's going to strip out everything except the numbers. If you say it's an IP, it's going to strip out everything but the numbers and the period. If it's text, this will strip out all HTML tags using strip tags. Now this is almost like how jQuery does, or JavaScript, but jQuery does the text function, where if it's not meant to be HTML, it only will give you back text if you only ask for the text. The character is alphanumeric characters and spaces are returned. And the field is alphanumeric characters, hyphens, underscores, and the only thing are the only thing returned. URL, here's all the different things: the characters, colon, / period, ampersand, question mark, percentage, equal sign, minus. Now, you might need another function in there for the purposes of most sites. They don't need to have, the colon with the different ports and all that. They don't need that in the URL. So that's why this is just the core. And then the default, it always, if you just left it like this, it always defaults to the character format here. And the spaces are always returned. Okay, and then for if worst case scenario, say that you're you're submitting a actual post request. This is where you might have to actually do it yourself. So if you, for whatever reason, you do actually have to call the outside variable unmodified, the raw format, this is how you would call it. So it would be you're calling the enforcer, the blocked, and it's meant to be kind of a headache, and then whatever it is, and then the field name, and this will return it back to you. So if you got an array that's coming inward from a post or something, this is where it would be handled. All right. All right. This is just going over what I just said. This is placed in your boot file, and HTTP request will be sent there. Okay. You will need to define what files to load in the config file. All right. So this is going over how to get the variable that you want, and let's just go. Let me do a quick a couple examples here with using this function. All right. So let's say that I'm going to have another query string coming in. Let's just call it test. So let's do evar, and then the get, and everything's documented, so this will all come up if you have this kind of stuff installed, so that way you don't have to worry about it. And this case, this is a test string, and for giggles, let's start off with an integer. Now let me make sure I do proper formatting, and then let's just exit so that way it doesn't start giving us weird errors. All right, so let's go back to the home page. Now let's up here, get back to there, and let's give it a test equals, and we said it's only an integer, so let's give it all this junk. So here you see, sorry, just making notes to myself of things I need to tweak. All right, so here's the test get, and here's what we're supplying it. So let's just give it a whole bunch of stuff here. And as you see, we gave it some characters and some numbers, and it returned just the numbers that were in the string. And let me just all right, so here you go, and you see if we just keep supplying it stuff, it's only going to return the numbers. It's the only thing it cares about, and so that's how that works. And now let's go and switch what type of variable it's supposed to be. So it says our options are okay. Let's try an IP. Which an IP is not. It's not validating any info. It's just making sure that what's returned from that variable is what a IP could actually have. So an IP has numbers. There's no periods in the string I put, but if I put some periods, it should come back with actually some. Okay, and I'm back. All right, so we had the IP, and it only turns the IP. So let's, and you add some other junk here, and maybe a plus sign, and no one comes back. All right, the next part. The next style is characters. Let's try characters. All right. So this should pretty much turn back exactly what we sent it, except strip out all these crazy characters that are in there. Yep. So this is only going to be alphanumeric coming back at you with spaces allowed. Yep. So even with a hyphen in there, whatever it is, it won't. It'll just keep changing. All right. So then everything else is pretty explanatory. The text will actually strip, if they send in some HTML, strip it out so that it can't be run unless you're doing something different than what it was originally designed for. All right, so here I just went through the test. I already explained how the switch, and this is how it comes in, and this is there to explain to you how it all works. You can, of course, at any time, use these headers. I probably wouldn't. I'd probably go and use a different style with one that has the max age and all that good stuff in there. And at the end here, if it defaults to nothing, you should always probably maybe have it go to a 404 page because if there's nothing for it to do and it's a website, normal websites, it would go to a 404 page. All right. Alright, so the next part that we have here is the system checker. Now the system checker is pretty unique, and I hope people just don't go turn it off or ignore it. It's actually really helpful, especially if you're throwing in plugins, because then you're more flexible when you move to different servers. Right away your website would tell you if something was wrong. Right away, you won't have to find it out by a customer or one of your reps calling and saying, "Hey, it's not working here." So let's give this a try here. So let's grab one that's here. So basically, the way it works is you go to call the class, and the class will actually come in and say, "All right, so system check." And if it's in false, it's going to be a true statement. So it's going to go to the next part. And all right, so this is just an example here. So right now what it's checking here is if Mongo, the class, is available. If it's not available, it's going to throw an exception. If PHP-extension isn't available, that's going to also throw an exception. There's a whole bunch that are actually used. Let's see if I can find one that's being used right now. So, alright, we got the optional plugins. Alright, the image one's a great example. Everybody knows the image classes, they use a lot of different things. And if you look how CoderNight does it, which that's where this class originally came from, and then it's been modified and hasn't been finished yet. But you'll see how they have a ton of checkers checking to make sure those functions are available before it actually goes. Of course, that I'm going through here now. I'm not able to find any. Might have been that I already removed it, which would be a great thing. Alright, so if you go up here, you'll see how for the image class, it's going to go through and make sure all these functions are actually there. And yeah, I did go remove it. I know it's here. So get image size, if that function's not there, basically what this is all requirements before it will allow this class to load. And if any of these requirements aren't met, it's going to throw an exception to whatever you have handled in it. If you have it just send you an email, display it on the page, I doubt that. Whatever that part is, that's all up to you. So the way it works is I finally got to use the GoTo class. Never actually had a real world use for it yet. But what it does is go to skip class load, and what it will do is just go to the bottom of the page here and not load the actual class. Now the reason why I use the GoTo is in certain cases you might have more things that you wanted to do when it gets here. You know, you might want it to do some logic or whatever it is, but you might so I wanted it to be flexible. So whatever you put in this page here in this section above the skip class load will be protected if any of those things fail. So not fail, but aren't available. Alright, so let's just make sure I didn't change anything here. Alright, so that's the system checker. And here's what the type of options that are built in, and of course send me some suggestions. Let me know how this works. It's real prototype, but it's definitely something that is worked out really well in a multi-server environment, cloud environment. I'm sure my other videos said the exact same thing. Alright, so you can say it's a class, a function, a PHP extension, or an INI file, and if it's an INI file, you would put INI here, and then you would put a comma and put what the value should be. So there's another parameter here that's for the INI checks. Alright, so the view loader. Alright, so these are all pretty function core part of it. Now the view function is this is where it starts getting a little more involved. So let's go here and let's create this example. I think there's one here. So alright, so index. Alright. So in your controller, which you would create inside the controllers folder, you would call your view file. So in this case, we're just going to call it the example just to show you how it works. Now you would just do views, and then it would be the load function, and then the help's going to come up here, and it's going to show you have the option of you put the path in, the data that you're going to want to pass to that file that you're loading, and if you wanted to return as a array variable or just print to the page, and as if true, content will be returned in an array. This is so that you can pass multiple things, like if you want to do the page title but separate from the content, or you want to do a separate side box. That's why it comes as array. Sometimes it's really annoying because you only need that one content thing. That's just the way it is. All right, so let's just load this part here. So you got the path, and right now we did. Let's see what we created over here. So in the views folder, it's example and then index.php. So example / and then index.php. We might make it so that you don't need to have the PHP on there. Right now, you do need to have it on there, and let's just supply it no data at the moment, and we'll just have it print directly to the page. We don't need it to come back as a variable. Alright, so let's see if that worked. An example page, and if you see it, the example page came, and then it went to the other testing stuff that we still had in here. Alright, which I can remove. So now what you can do is, let's check the docs here. It would show you, okay, so in your controller you would be loading this file constantly. Well, not this one file, but doing whatever you need to combine all the content that's going to be displayed on the main page within the header, the footer, the side boxes, the different things like that. So this is where you would call that body, and at the end, when you're done with everything, you're ready to render it to the screen, or you could just render it to a file, whatever you like. This is where it would be done. So you would just go do whatever you need, have it saved to an actual variable, or you could have it print the top, bottom. That's personal preference, but then you would pass it into this part of it. Okay, so that's pretty much the views part, and then you got the optional plugins, which I'm not even going to go into in this video. And let's see what else, if there's anything else I want to show in this video. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to go into those. All right, so that's pretty much the core. And in this case, you know, if you want to know how what to do once you get inside here, the MVC, there's a great YouTube tutorial made by, gosh, I hope I get this right, J-Ream's Design. It's supposed to be like Dream Design, but with a J. He has a MVC. I think if you just type in PHP MVC, he'll be the first one that comes up. Let's just verify that. Let's see if I'm right in that case. So MVC PHP. Yep. So J-Ream Design, and he has, I think it's, you know, a few parts. I've watched it. He has a lot of good ideas. You'll see some influence. I'm hoping that maybe, you know, it'll grow from this. But if you want to know what to do once it's into the core is meant to handle, you know, that first piece where you just throw it in, you know it's solid, and then you can go and you start adding everything on top of that. The one thing I did want to put in here was on the variable. If you go and use one last thing, if you go and you use that evar function and you want to use the raw output, I suggest you actually do here, let's do a test here. So we have the test, and then it's a get. So let's see. So we have this right off the bat, and let's go back to our testing page. Okay, so right now it's just gonna fail because you have all this junk up there. Let's see if I did this right. Forgot to echo. All right. Okay, it was in the middle of going. All right, so let me make a note to remove the end. All right, so let's try this one more time here. All right, so you have all this, and of course, if you put your dash, you can put whatever you want in here. All right, and that's terrible. So one thing I suggest is if you're going to go that route, is to actually use what the evar is actually using to clean the variable. So let me just quickly open this so that way I can show you a little better. All right, so let's say you want to do it the dirty way, or just do it your badass way. It's going to be the evar, and then you're going to call the clean data function, and this is where you get to tell it what it is, what type of variable it's supposed to be. And here's where the variable is going to go, and then let's go to the next, and this is going to be what type. So the type is, let's say in this case, it's going to be the character, and then let's close that off. So let's see if I did that right on first run. Yep, so right away this is what it's doing. So if you need to, for instance, if you're passing it an array, like an actual array in the string or an array in the post, when you go through each one, I suggest that you use this religiously, and it's meant so that you take the headaches out of having to keep verifying content. and then you just go in here and say, okay, this one's supposed to be just text, and it'll let everything else in except the HTML tags. It'll let all the different tabs and everything like that. So that's just one thing I wanted to throw in here, and I'm gonna make sure I put this in the docs on how to. So I hope this has gotten you one step closer to actually using this product or being able to use it. I hope it works on your machine. If it doesn't, make sure, keep saying it, make sure to go back to Bitbucket and let me know what happens, and I'm going to help you throughout the process, because this actually means a lot to me. So I appreciate it, and let me know. Thanks.